Good morning on Good morning on both sides of the bench with Sean Yurtkaran, and we're here on another one of these days that it seems to be extremely dreary, which we've had a lot of those these past few weeks. I think last weekend was finally a sunny day. It doesn't seem like we're going to get those on any weekend here in the near future. But I've noticed it's also like really unseasonably cold. I've been wearing. I have to break my winter stuff back out, so which is fine with me because I cannot stand the hot weather. So I'm enjoying this and saving on my electric bill, just like the rest of us, with these high energy prices that we're all dealing with that. But anyway, so I'm here on just this show is to talk about basically legal misconceptions. That's kind of what I do every weekend. Things that are what I call like bro legal science, and things that you think that are true about the law that aren't. And on social media, I seem to be getting a lot of arguments about that, about what is the things that people had thought, because people get so like it. I guess I don't know if the word is indoctrinated, but they get so firm in their beliefs that they've just been told it so much that they refuse when somebody actually knows what they're talking about. They're like, "No, that's not true." You're like, "No, man. I mean, I've been doing this for like 20 years. I don't know a lot of things, but this is one thing I do know." I had an argument with a guy the other day about the reading your Miranda rights on social media, where he assumed that the minute you're arrested that they had to do that, and a lot of people think that, but that's not true. They have to do that once you're what's a custodial interrogation, when they're asking you questions. Not need to use big legal phrases. When when you're arrested and they throw you in a room and they ask you questions, that's when they need to read you your rights. And they'll give you, most of the time you'll see, they'll give you a form where it lists the rights out, and you can they'll make you initial it and then sign it, and then you can say, okay, I waive them, I'm going to give you a statement. So that's when they got to do that. But it's not the minute you are arrested. I was talking to a friend of mine who was a former prosecutor yesterday about this issue, and he was telling me this story about a friend of his who's a cop who, I guess, a suspect had told him, well, I got you, buddy. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you didn't read my rights, so they're going to throw this case out. And the guy said, oh, yeah, man, you got me. I'm done. So I think there is that thought in society that that's what the law is, and it's not. And that, of course, is from the influence of TV. I think most people could probably tell you what they'll say, the word Miranda, but they don't know exactly which rights they are or what part of the Constitution that pertains to. But neither here nor there. Just know that the minute you're arrested, and if they don't read you your Miranda rights, it doesn't mean they are throwing your case out. I might say this every show because I seem to get into a debate with somebody about it quite frequently. Um, Also, I'm going to be here for 2 hours today. I know everybody's excited about that. And Matthew Bishop, I think, has got called up on his reserve duty. So thanks to him for serving, and everybody who has served. I'm a former Marine myself, so I appreciate everybody's service. And so I'll be covering for him for the next few weeks, doing 2 hours on Saturday mornings when if you don't have anything better to do, you can tune in to 103.9 WYAB, and I'll be on here discussing everything about the law that you didn't think was true, and some of the inside stuff and kind of how funny it was. The I was working on some cases yesterday, and then a friend of mine who was a prosecutor called me up, old friend of mine. We were talking about our days back in the DA's office, and how you know it's since certain professions seem to be like more glamorized than others. Like, for instance, being a prosecutor is always, there's all these like movies about it and series and all that kind of stuff, and so it seems a lot more glamorous than it is, but it really ends up being just like any other job. Like, whether you pick up trash or you prosecute, it kind of becomes the same thing. We used to call it the sausage factory, which I know sounds terrible, but it's just because, like, we're like, oh, we're just processing sausage every day. And because it's just like, all right, put on your hat and go to the salt mine. It just there's just so many cases, and you're just kind of working them through the system. And I think sometimes people, when they get arrested, and it's so serious to them, and it should be, because it is serious. I mean, I don't mean to make light of that, but when you do the job day in and day out, you kind of just look at every case as kind of like a number. So when you're not, I think people think that you're like, you have this vendetta or you're vindictive towards a specific defendant, and I never got like that with anybody. It's just here's another case. Now, there are some crimes that obviously are worse than others, and you take all that into account. And there's some victims and their families that you really sympathize with, and that hit you kind of hard. But But generally, 99% of the time, it's another house burglary case, or it's another auto theft, or it's a dope sale, or whatever. And so you're just like, let me close these out. I used to call it turn and burn. I said, let's turn and burn these things. We got another one coming down the sausage line right here in a second. So it's not everybody's out to get you. Everybody's doing their job. And I try to tell my clients that just, don't worry about like so and so's focused on you. Like that's just not reality. They're not. But the one time when they are focused on you is the beginning stage, and that's what this show is going to be about. The beginning stage of any investigation, any crime, any arrest. And I think that people tend to think that they can help themselves at the beginning. And usually that's by lying, which that is the worst thing you can do. They think if they are helping the police at the beginning when they're arrested, that's going to do them a lot of good. Now, there are times that if you're completely honest, that it can. I've seen it turn out okay. That wouldn't be necessarily the suggestion I would make. It would be more that, if you're arrested, you need to invoke your right to remain silent, contact a lawyer, consult them. If the two of you then want to go talk to the police and tell your side of whatever story, that's a different story. That under consultation with somebody that's a professional, I think that's something you can look into. But off the bat, it's very rare that someone is going to help themselves by speaking to the police. Because look, the police are good people. They got a job to do. They arrest people. They work cases. They protect the community. It's a very serious job. Their job is not to be the friends of the people that they arrest. Because if they're arresting you, they got some reason for doing that. And it's usually not just because they hate you. So therefore, they're not trying to help you. They're trying to work a case. They've got to the point where they're making an arrest. And once they've made that arrest, you're in a bad position. And so they're not your lawyer. They're not looking to clear you at that point. They're making an arrest because they think you did it. I mean, just to put it as simply as I can, they think you did it. So at that point, they're going to do everything they can to prove that you did it. They're not trying to prove that you didn't do it. Now, and I've seen cases where they find evidence that you didn't do it, and then that happens. I mean, that I would say that's way more rare that happens. And even then, even in those scenarios, I've seen such friction with people when I was on the other side of this, in the law enforcement side, being like, God, I got this wrong. Cause that's just the nature of human nature, where it's like, I got something wrong. So what do I do now? I don't want to admit that. And I mean, I've seen my old boss, the former DA, had a situation like that. And finally we were all telling him like, this guy didn't do it, man. We got to let this guy go. And that's a long story, but so that happens too. So they're generally not trying to prove you didn't do it. They're trying to prove you did do it. So when you go into an interrogation room, let's just say that, and you tell them a story, 9 times out of 10, what people do is they lie. I mean, immediately they lie about what is going on, what happened. And I've seen that more times than I'll ever be able to count. And I've also can say that lying to the police does not help you. I mean, you don't get anything out of that because they're not stupid. They're going to figure it out. And the most important thing when you go in there and you talk to the police and you lie to them is that you're creating evidence against yourself. You've caused a credibility problem for yourself, and that's going to be used against you. And even if you didn't do it, or you're the least culpable, the least guilty, the other guys that you're with are more guilty, the lie makes you look the worst. It makes you look the least credible. And also, like, let's say you want to become a cooperating witness and reduce your potential sentence. Well, if you lie on the front end, that hurts your ability to do that. I mean, it just does, because then the state's going to be like, well, I don't know if I want to use him because he lied. Now the other guy wants to testify and he wants to, get lesser time, and he didn't lie. So, or he didn't make a statement, which is generally what I always say is the best thing you can do. Just, remain silent, call a lawyer, and take it from there. But when you go in there and lie, you build all this evidence against yourself because they start poking through every little thing. I mean, I've never seen a criminal defendant outsmart the police by lying to them in an interrogation. I've just never seen that. But they also, for some reason, think that they can. And then they come to me and they're like, hey, Sean, this happened. And I'm like, God bless it, man. It creates a mountain of problems for your case when you go in there and do that, when you're going to get no benefit. Now, if lying worked. I'm not saying I'd advocate lying. I'm just saying that would be a different story. Like if it was something that was actually successful, it's just not successful. It's not successful. So that is something to think about. Lying, just like you learned when you were a kid, lying does not help you. It's never going to help you. You're never going to get out of something by not telling the truth when you're accused of crime. You're just not going to. You're just going to make the case against you better, or you're going to limit. I guess the other things really, you're going to limit your options too. So let's say the police have a bunch of evidence against you, and then you make a statement and you lie to them. Well, if you've committed that crime with some other people and you wanted to potentially become a witness, well, you just screwed that because they're not going to want to use you because you lied. So you ruined that. And it is absolutely no benefit. I have when I was a prosecutor, I loved it when a defendant would make a statement because I knew nine times out of 10 they were going to lie. And when they did, and then they wanted to take the stand, which is another issue entirely, and you just get to make mincemeat out of them. I mean, and you don't even talk about the case or the suspected crime for the most part. You just talk about all the times they lied. And when you do that, you know what the jury does? What any normal person does, completely thinks you did it. They're like, well, that person lied about this, so they must be guilty. That's what happens. So it's not something that's going to help you. And again, when you're in there, the police are going to try a lot of different tactics where that may seem unfair, but they're legal. And I'm going to talk about that on the next segment. Like the police can lie to you. You lying to them may not be a good idea, but they can lie to you. They do that routinely. The United States Supreme Court said that is perfectly fine for the police to lie to you. They can lie to you, trick you, do all these things. And they'll do it. I mean, they'll put, let's say three of you guys went and robbed a bank, and they got all three of you in interrogation rooms. They may go into your room and say, hey, your buddy Johnny, what he told us that you did it, you planned it, it was your gun, you staked it out, all that stuff. And all that is not true. Like Johnny never said that about you, but they're telling you that he did. And you're like, oh my God, did he really do that? I can't believe he sold me out. And the cop's like, yeah, man, I guess you're going to prison forever. And Johnny's gonna walk unless you tell us what really happened, because we really like to get him more. See, that's what's going to happen. And Johnny, by the way, he's sitting in another interrogation room and he didn't do anything, he didn't say anything. But that's what they're going to tell you. And they can do that. They're able to do that. And how are you going to know they're lying? I mean, people listening right now probably didn't know they could do that. But they're perfectly able to do that. They're trained to get statements from you. That is their expertise. They are good at it. That's why I call this episode "The Police Are Not Your Friends," because when you go in that room, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times they're going to act like your friends. Like, hey, man, help yourself. You can help yourself. You ain't going to help yourself. You're not helping yourself. They're going to tell you that, but you are not helping yourself. And I'm going to pick that up on the next segment of Both Sides of the Bench. Y'all stay tuned.
Keep it tuned here to 103.9 WYAB.
Sean, I'm really going to need your help.
What'd you do this time, Lindsay?
Well, unfortunately, I got pulled over last night.
And what did you tell the police?
Only had 2 drinks.
Only 2, huh?
Only 2.
And I'm assuming you had more than 2. Is that correct?
Only 2, Sean.
You should have stayed silent, Lindsay. I know you can't do that, and that's tough with you, but you should have said nothing.
You know, I can't ever stay silent.
Yeah, I know that.
And now I'm in trouble, though. How can you help?
Well, I can tell you this. Next time you get pulled over to police when you've been drinking and driving, stay silent. Don't say that you've only had 2 drinks, because that just helps them and hurts you.
So what should I have done?
Called me.
Really? How do I do that?
601-862-1320 or
onetextlaw.com.
Next time you get pulled over by police, stay silent.
Teaching from God's Word for your life.
How would you like to be set free today? Man, I would. I want to walk in the freedom that Jesus purchased for me. I don't want to live simply holding a ticket to heaven. I want a heaven right here on earth. God wants to do a work in your life. He wants to set you free today. He wants to do a work to take you out of the prison. Are you ready to feel the shaking of the prison? Are you ready to see the shackles fall? Are you ready to see that prison door open? I promise you, if you'll start praising God right in the middle of it, I'm telling you, God will do a work. You say, but I don't feel like it. Don't wait till you feel like it. Let your feelings follow. I promise you start praising him and you'll start feeling like it. It just happens that way. They're not good leaders, but the feelings are great followers. Man, let your faith lead out.
For more teaching from David Jett, visit crossgates.org.
Your roof is constantly exposed to the elements, battling dirt, algae, and stains. But with Watkins Construction and Roofing Roof Wash Service, you can keep it looking like new. A proprietary rooficide treatment is EPA approved, safe, and guaranteed to prevent algae from coming back for at least 2 years. No harsh chemicals, no damage, no black streaks. Just a clean, beautiful roof that lasts. Call Watkins Construction and Roofing at 601-966-8233 or visit nomoreroofstains.com today.
The Tri-County Academy Rebel success in the classroom and on the athletic stage begins with the Tri-County Academy Booster Club. Join the team and be a Rebel by getting involved and volunteering as a booster. Your involvement is the generator for fundraisers, facility upgrades, equipment, uniforms, and all other needs. Tri-County Athletics thrives in part because of our TCA boosters. Join today by calling the TCA main office at 601-879-8517 and help the Rebels continue the championship tradition.
Sean, we all know Ronald Reagan is the greatest president of our time.
Have you forgot about Bill Clinton? The 1990s were awesome.
Who could ever forget about Bill or Monica?
Yes, I don't think Bill has forgotten about Monica either.
And Bill needed a lawyer just like Donald Trump does these days.
Yes, Donald Trump has certainly needed a lot of lawyers, and so do people that get pulled over by the police or arrested by the police, Lindsay. You know why?
Why, Sean?
Because somebody needs to tell them to shut up, like I attempt to tell you, which doesn't work.
Never works. I'm sure it does, but you can actually get in touch with Sean if you're in trouble at onetextlaw.com.
And you can also reach me at 601-862-1320. I can't get her to be quiet, but I can definitely convince you to be quiet if you call me at 601-862-1320 and get a lawyer. Be like the president.
onetextlaw.com.
Talking away. I don't know what to say. I'll say it anyway.
And we're back on both sides of the bench on this gloomy Saturday morning. I hope y'all are having a good day and have fun inside. It seems like to me inside day. I did notice there was the Makers Fest going on downtown, so good luck to all them. I think it's rained there the last few years, if I remember correctly. I've never been, but it looks like a fun event. And I was just thinking about all the outdoor. I guess when you plan outdoor events in April, May, it's kind of what you get. You got to deal with the weather. So hope everybody is having a lovely weekend. We're sitting here talking about the police are not your friends, and they are not trying to help you once you've been arrested. Now, the police may be your friends outside of this, and I've got a ton of police friends, and I hope they weren't offended by when I use this episode title on put it on social media this week. I didn't mean like they're not your friends or we shouldn't value them, because I do, and I was a former military police officer myself. So that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying when they're doing their job and you are arrested, they are not your friends. They will try to pretend like they're your friends and that they're trying to help you, but they are not trying to help you. The only thing you can do when you talk to them, for the most part, not all those times, and I'll get into some of those situations, is hurt yourself, because 9 times out of 10, like I said last segment, you're going to lie to them. At least that's what I've experienced over the past 21 years of doing this, which I've pretty much done nothing but criminal work for 21 years. Like the first year of law school, I did civil for like 1 year. So 1 year out of 21, I didn't do criminal work. So 20 years of it. And in 20 years, I can tell you, it's just like I can look at these reports or these confessions or statements, and I'm just like, yep, okay, where's the lie? Start marking them off. It's kind of like when I get, I've explained this on other shows, when I get a DUI arrest report when I'm representing someone, and the cops have basically copied and pasted smells like alcohol bloodshot eyes. Yeah, I mean, like I think they just like there's a copy and paste function they use that they use for those reports, because on every DUI they apparently everybody smells like alcohol no matter what you've been drinking, and they've got bloodshot and glossy eyes. So they, I mean, they have a system of doing this, and the statements you make don't help you. I've said this time and again every weekend, just referencing a DUI. People get pulled over and like, oh, have you been drinking? Everybody's like, yeah, I've had 2 drinks, and they seem to think there's like an urban legend that saying that you had 2 drinks is going to make the cops just let you go. Which again, in 20 years, I've never seen that. I've never seen anybody get let go because they said, I only had 2 drinks. I'm okay to drive. And the cops are like, you know what? I think you're right, sir. You're totally okay. Even though you got like a wristband and a stamp on your hand, and you just left Danny's or wherever. Like, I've never seen the cops, like, you never see like Flowwood police be like, yeah, man, this guy's good to go. Never happens. It's not going to happen. But people think that they're like, well, I'll just tell them this and everything's good. And then they'll bring their case to their lawyer, and which they'll misrepresent what happened to their lawyer, which could be a whole nother show of why you shouldn't do that, because your lawyer cannot help you unless you're completely honest with them, and they can't disclose what y'all have been talking about. So you might as well. And that's how you get, it's kind of like lying to your doctor about your symptoms. Like, why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. And I think a lot of people get these bright ideas by watching TV or Googling things. That's another problem that I encounter, and I see a lot of legal practitioners do, is people will come to me and say, well, I saw this on ChatGPT. I'm like, okay, well, the robot's wrong. It's not a lawyer, and it's completely wrong the stuff it's giving you. And it hallucinates. I mean, it just it's wrong. And that's kind of like my sister's a medical professional. She's a nurse, and every time I have some kind of issue, I'll get on WebMD or Google it. I'm like, oh my God, I got cancer. And I'll call my sister, and she's like, you're an idiot. Like, you don't have cancer. Stop looking at WebMD. You're not a medical professional. You don't know what you're dealing with. And she's luckily, fortunately for me, so far, she's been right. And that's the thing. And people do that with the law. They get on there, and some people at this point are now, they're getting ChatGPT to draft questions for them to ask their lawyers. And all these questions are like stupid. And I'm just like, no. And then sometimes I have that kind of one of those personalities where I'll get really frustrated with people when they start asking me really stupid questions, because after I've told them that that's not true. And you're wasting your time when you do stuff like that. You're not going to have a law degree and years of experience by getting on ChatGPT. It's just not going to happen. So like, come into your lawyer and say, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think? And, hopefully you'll talk to some lawyer that, you've got good references about, and they know what they're doing. Once you find that person, then just tell them like, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think based upon your experience? And, if you come to me and say that, I'm going to say, based on 20 years of experience doing, being a prosecutor for a long time, being a criminal defense lawyer for a long time, here's what I think, X, Y, and Z. Here's what's going to happen most likely. And then people tend to come back and say, well, what about this? Like, no, I'm telling you, this is not what's going to happen. So you need to rely on your lawyer. They're your counsel. You're paying them to do a job that they're experienced to do, and they're not in the business of trying to screw you over. Well, I hope not. I'm sure there's lawyers out there, like Better Call Saul or something like that. But generally, they're not trying to do that. So just focus on, telling them the truth and listening to what they have to say, and knowing that you're not trained for this. Just like when you get arrested and you go and you talk to the police, you're not trained to know what to say. Even if you didn't do it, you're not, because these officers have been doing this for years. And I've worked with so many of them over the years, and they're good, man. Some of these guys are good. I mean, they know what they're doing. Eric Smith was a JPD detective, and he was unfortunately killed in 2013. This guy was the greatest police officer I'd ever seen. I mean, he'd get you to talk, and he'd get you to turn on your own mother. Like, they will do that. Like, they are good at this. And your explanation to them about what happened, which generally, again, includes a lie, is not going to get you out of it. It's going to get you in more trouble. So, don't do that. And also, people, when they talk to them, generally they'll if they admit involvement, then they'll try to like limit their involvement. Like, hey, I'm not as guilty. Well, that's not helping you either. Like, okay, you're not as guilty. Like, what does that even mean? You're still part of it. You still did whatever it is. But they'll try to say, oh, well, I'm just not as guilty as the other guys. And they see right through that crap too. Like that doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. You'll see the police will also they'll do this thing where they'll invoke like fake sympathy, like, man, we know it's hard on you. I mean, this is hard, man. We know, man. Keep on going. Like they're your good friend. And you're just like, okay. And then the defendant tells another lie. I mean, just no, stop talking. Just stop talking at that point. So I think those are just things to really think about. You cannot help yourself. That interrogation room, think of it like a big theater. It's a theater. The police are putting on a play for you to get you to say things, to say stupid things, to incriminate yourself. And then they'll get all those things out of you, and then they got a statement. Either you confess to the whole thing, or you lied about the whole thing, or you limited your involvement but still made yourself guilty. That's what happens. And then they hand that over to the DA's office where I used to work. And I used to sit there with some of these cases, and I'm like, man, if this guy never said anything, we would have to let him go because we wouldn't have anything. I mean, that's what we were like, man, we've had nothing. If this guy just hadn't said anything, we could not prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. It would be impossible. He gave us such an assist. And I mean, I wish I could put an actual percentage on that, but I would say it's north of 75% of cases are like that somebody talks and that's the main evidence against them. Because I mean, this is not like TV where we've got these super like CSI where we got these like machines like, oh God, look, we matched the defendant's hand to the railing over here and it looked like he at one time held a gun. Those stuff doesn't exist. Like none of that stuff exists. I mean, I don't even know. I've had like 2 cases in my life out of thousands where they had like fingerprints. One case where they had a footprint on a door. That's the only case I've ever had like that when I was prosecuting. And it was a guy that broke into Trent Lott's house, the former senator in Hinds County. And they actually like successfully got a footprint. And I couldn't believe that. It's the first time I'd ever seen that. Never seen it since either. So that was like big time stuff. Now, occasionally we'll have DNA evidence, and I've had a lot of cases with that, and that's great stuff. But that's not the norm. Like every case you don't have DNA. I mean, that's like 20% of cases maybe. And you don't have that footprint that when you're kicking in the former senator's door. They don't have all that stuff. I mean, I could tell you how many times have we found the gun, the murder weapon? Maybe, again, I'm going to go with 20% of the time in the cases. The murder, and I primarily did murder cases. And I mean, we never had the gun. Never had the damn gun. And everybody's like, well, we don't have that. Where's the murder weapon? I don't know, man. It got dumped in the river. So what happens is people talk, and that's how they convict themselves, or their buddies talk, and that's how they convict them. Now, today's things are changing a little bit where there's more evidence for the state because everything's on video. So that's made it even more difficult for people to kind of skate on things. So everything's recorded. And your cell phone, and I've discussed that before. I used to convict people on that. Now it's even gotten better, that technology where you're able to track people. So there are all these things, and all you're doing by helping the police and talking is giving them more of that stuff. And I'll follow that up on the next segment of Both Sides of the Bench. Y'all stay tuned. All you're doing by helping the police and talking.
Lindsay.
Well, unfortunately, I got pulled over last night.
And what did you tell the police?
Only had 2 drinks.
Only 2, huh?
Only 2.
And I'm assuming you had more than 2. Is that correct?
Only 2, Sean.
You should have stayed silent, Lindsay. I know you can't do that, and that's tough with you, but you should have said nothing.
You know, I can't ever stay silent.
Yeah, I know that.
And now I'm in trouble, though. How can you help?
Well, I can tell you this. Next time you get pulled over to police when you've been drinking and driving, stay silent. Don't say that you've only had 2 drinks because that just helps them and hurts you.
So what should I have done?
Called me.
Really? How do I do that?
601-862-1320 or
onetextlaw.com.
Next time you get pulled over by police, stay silent.
For 30 years, Small Town Music no longer has a dedicated physical location in Canton, but we continue to support WYAB and hope you will by shopping our merchandise and original music online. And of course, you can still call 601-859-8596. Small Town Music, come on and get it. 859-8596. Call before you're home. We will have a booth on Canton Square at the Emporium, and you can still browse our guitars and support our original music at www.smalltownmusic.com.
ABC News, I'm Mike Dubusky. A person is now dead after being struck by a Frontier Airlines jet while it was taking off at Denver International Airport last night. ABC's Jim Ryan.
Seconds after aborting its takeoff roll and slamming on the brakes, the crew of Frontier Flight 4345 called the control tower.
There was an individual walking across the runway.
The audio from ATC.com.
We've got smoke in the aircraft. We're going to evacuate on the runway.
Emergency slides were deployed and passenger Andrew Garcia captured video of the scene. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says the person had deliberately jumped an airport perimeter fence and was killed 2 minutes later. Medical crews in Spain, including officials from the CDC, are preparing to receive that cruise ship at the center of the hantavirus outbreak. It's expected to drop anchor in the Canary Islands tomorrow. And still no response from Iran to the latest U.S. peace proposal after American forces struck Iranian oil tankers yesterday. This is ABC News.
You had an accident. Now you're hearing aftermarket parts, insurance company preferred, and a lot of other noise that serves to confuse you. Call Clinton Body Shop. We'll keep it simple. We are certified by 19 vehicle makers to assure you get a proper repair. We care about your investment and your safety. Call the shop who only wants one partner in the repair process, and that's you, the owner. In Clinton and in Richland, we work for you. We take pride in perfection.
As Christians, it's our calling to be faithful to Christ and obedient to the Great Commission. Our heart's desire and prayer to God is that through our efforts, many would receive and rest upon Christ alone as he is offered to them in the gospel. I'm David Strain, Senior Minister at First Presbyterian Church of Jackson, inviting you and your family to join us as we strive to fulfill that mission. We're located on North State Street in Jackson. Times of our services can be found at fpcjackson.org. You can also hear the good news about Jesus Christ each Sunday morning at 9:30 on 103.9 WYAB.
Sean, we all know Ronald Reagan is the greatest president of our time.
Have you forgot about Bill Clinton? The 1990s were awesome.
Who could ever forget about Bill? Remember Monica?
Yes, I don't think Bill has forgotten about Monica either.
And Bill needed a lawyer just like Donald Trump does these days.
Yes, Donald Trump has certainly needed a lot of lawyers, and so do people that get pulled over by the police or arrested by the police, Lindsay. You know why?
Why, Sean?
Because somebody needs to tell them to shut up, like I attempt to tell you, which doesn't work.
Never works. I'm sure it does, but you can actually get in touch with Sean if you're in trouble at onetextlaw.com.
And you can also reach me at 601-862-1320. I can't get her to be quiet, but
And we're back on both sides of the bench on this lovely Saturday where I probably angered every police officer in the metro area. Guys, I am sorry. And gals, you guys are great people. I am just giving people, I don't want to call it advice, just benefit of my experience. So the benefit of my experience is the police are not your friends when you're arrested. And if you didn't know that, you know it now. And I don't know that anybody will remember what I said anyway. And we'll go into the interrogation rooms and lie or try to limit their involvement, which are all terrible, terrible ideas. And so just, you got constitutional rights for a reason. Use them. I mean, that's kind of, this station's real big on that. Everybody hears, you hear Kim Wade talking about that all the time. Or, I mean, you got a really strong constitution and we let him talk. So the, you can use them. You can use them to protect yourself and use it as a shield. Like that's, the best thing. Use it as a shield, because that's why they're there. And you are just not you're not trained to help yourself in that situation against trained professionals. I mean, it's kind of like you trying to run against a Olympic athlete. You're not going to outrun them. They're going to beat you every time, and the police are going to do the same thing. Especially if you are guilty, folks. I mean, think about that. You're not going to be able to talk your way out of that. So, just be careful when that happens. It's best to consult a lawyer before you talk to the police. Even I was having a discussion with somebody the other day about this and about a situation where it's a self-defense. I think I had a call 1 second.
Thank you for
Hello?
calling WYAB. This is an unmonitored.
Sorry, I guess I got I can never. We gotta pull the light up on the calls. So anyway, the where I was at. So I was talking to a guy the other day about what about if you shoot somebody in your house? Like what happens in that scenario? Like should you talk to the police right then? And you would think, yeah, because like the guy broke into my house at night, let's say, like the classic scenario nightmare scenario we all think about. Guy breaks in your house, you got the castle doctrine, we all know it. I got a caller. Hold on 1 second. Hello? Hello?
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
Hey, on the constitutional rights today, this is Josh, the 21-year-old. I'm not 21-year-old, the 21-year in the Navy, retired senior chief.
Yep.
That did law enforcement as well. And I took one class in constitutional law on my way to get my degree. And I was just wondering, when they get pulled over, say you get pulled over, they ask you to search the car.
Mm-hmm.
You say, no, you pulled me over. They state the reason they pulled you over was for X. Speeding. They didn't like, one of them told me my tail light was out and one was struggling, which again, knowing constitutional law is not a reason to pull me over if I have one on.
Right.
But either way, they pull you over, right? And you tell them, no, I don't want to search. I got to get down the road. So please write your ticket or whatever it was, the reason you pulled me over. And then next thing you know, 30, 40 minutes later, as they're sitting there, the police dog shows up, and then you can take it from there. I was just wondering what your perspective is on what's a reasonable amount of time sometimes for a traffic stop, and what would you recommend saying or doing in that case?
Yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate it. That's actually something that came up recently in a case I had. So the way the Constitution does, it looks at your car different than your home. And I'm not to get into a historical lesson about that, but the draft of the Constitution, that like the Fourth Amendment was meant to protect your home, but it does extend to your car to a certain amount. There is something called an automobile exception, and that's if there's some probable cause to. And let me hang up the phone real quick because I'm getting feedback. I'll answer it though. There's something called an automobile exception, and that is if there's some sort of probable cause for them to, or reasonable suspicion for them to search a car, like they smell marijuana. That's a big thing. Then they can search certain areas of the car without a warrant. Now, what Johnny's talking about is if they don't have that and you don't consent, what's a reasonable amount of time? And the Supreme Court has actually ruled on this, that it's got to be, it can't be endless. I think 40 minutes would fit into that time frame, but a few hours would not fall into that. And I'm going to look up. I'm glad you brought that up because I just actually had to submit a memo with that case, and I think it's Rodriguez versus U.S. But there is. So there's a reasonable time. 40 minutes may fit into that analysis, but there is but that is true. There is, like, if you don't consent and they're having to go get a warrant, then there is a reasonable amount of time for that situation. The which of course is different from what I'm talking about with the automobile exception, when there's like they smell marijuana or something, or they see a gun on the seat, where they can search without a warrant at that point. So those are little differences. But I guess the easiest way to explain this is that your car is not as protected by the Fourth Amendment as your home. Like your home is going to be is what the Fourth Amendment was pretty much drafted for. So your car is a little bit looser restrictions or standards on that, and it is. But there are still legal safeguards there, and they have to do those things in a reasonable amount of time. They can't just indefinitely hold you forever. They can't do that. And I got a case recently dismissed on that issue, actually. So I'm glad you brought that up. But those are things to think about, because what happens when people get. That's when most people, I think, deal with the police, is when they're getting pulled over, because most of us aren't getting our houses searched. I mean, it happens, and a lot of times when that happens, you generally are up to bad things in my experience. But most was pulled over, and somebody's like smoking. Say you're smoking marijuana. Now we got medical marijuana, and that was a big debate I saw online recently. That I had to explain to folks was about that marijuana and the automobile exception. And in some states now they've taken the smell of marijuana out of the automobile exception. They've taken that out. And I think Arizona is one of those. I'd have to look that up again. There's a few states that have passed medical marijuana, and some states that have recreational and medical that have taken that out as a reason for the to exception to the search warrant exception. Mississippi is not one of them yet, and being the way our legislature is, I cannot see that passing. I just cannot see, because that would be seen as like an anti-law enforcement situation. So I don't think you'll see the Mississippi legislature try to remove that at all. I don't see that happening. But there has been specific laws in other states that have taken the smell of marijuana. So, so go commit crimes there. But that's the kind of the crux of that. The other thing that people tend to do when they before they get arrested, or they know they're going to get arrested, other than, of course, like I said, don't talking to the police and trying to help themselves when they don't, is they panic and they start cleaning up. And what I mean by cleaning up, they start deleting all their text messages, and they start wiping their social media. So that's one group of people that do all that. They're the ones that, I guess, they're the thinkers, if you want to call it. Like, I'm going to delete my text messages. I'm going to wipe social media. Then they're the real idiots. Okay. And these are the ones that post their crimes on social media. I've seen that quite a bit, where somebody will commit like an armed robbery. This is where it happens the most. And they'll have pictures of them with the guns and the cash on Facebook. I kid you not. I am not. I mean, I kid you how many times I've seen that with the guns and the cash. One guy I had one time, this was over a decade ago. He made a rap song about his armed robbery. That was actually a very good rap song, and I listened to it the whole time while I was prosecuting him and sending him to jail forever. Because because it was like he talked about the robbery in the rap song. Okay, now that's even worse than talking to the police when you're making a rap song about your robbery and posting it on social media. I mean, but that's a situation that you would see. You'd see somebody will make a rap song, post the cash and the guns on social media, and then they'll lie to the cops about the whole thing. I have seen that. That was that case where this guy did that. He made a rap song, put pictures of himself with guns and cash, and then he gave a statement to the police and lied about it. I'm like, bro, they got your Facebook pictures and you made a song about it. I mean, you made a song. And that is just quite unbelievable, but it happens. So I assume 99% of us that get charged with some sort of a crime are not going to make a rap song. So I probably need to get into that. I just think it's kind of a funny story, but that's the extent people have gone to convict themselves. And people really, defendants, suspects, people that are arrested are the best witnesses, the best evidence the state has, hands down, over 90% of the time. Always the best evidence. I mean, because they've been convicting people long before we had DNA and all that neat stuff. Cell phone tracking. Like I told that story last week about the guy that killed his mistress's boyfriend. That the main evidence I had against, well, he did two things. He got tracked by his cell phone in front of the guy's house that he killed, and then he confessed to his other mistress about the crime. Right. I mean, this guy was a genius. Okay. And so he goes and he kills this dude, and then he goes to his other mistress' house and says, "Man, I just killed a guy." And I remember she had moved to Arizona once we had the trial, and she was like John Madden. She refused to fly, so we could not fly her in as a witness. I had to get her a train ticket and pick her up from the Jackson the train station because she wouldn't fly. So she was like on train for days. And but she was a great witness because she got up in the stand, and that's what's called an admission by a party opponent. So it comes into evidence. And he said, yeah, he just told me he killed the guy, and he just because he was messing around with his other girl. So I guess all the girls kind of knew about each other, and and so he convicted himself, and we didn't have a gun. We didn't have, there was no eyewitness. There was none of that stuff that, you think about, you see on TV. We didn't have any of that CSI cool stuff. I mean, if you want to consider the cell phone thing, but I mean, everybody's got a cell phone now. That's not really like amazing CSI technology. That's just what we do to do that is you go and you issue a subpoena for those records. And then you go over to, back then those were, C Spire had a lot of Mississippi. So we'd go over to C Spire and we'd go, subpoena one of those cell site mapping guys, throw him on the stand, and boom, boom, pinged off the Northwest Tower or over on Ridgewood Road or whatever it is. And there you go. You know where the guys kind of generally where they're at. So that's how that works. It's not really that difficult. And then he went and told on himself, which again, to me was almost the better evidence, because the cell phone stuff, you could they can't say, like, at least at that time. Now it may be different. They may be more precise now. And that's something that is right now before the U.S. Supreme Court. I'll get to that in a moment. But you could kind of say that it couldn't get you to the exact location. I mean, it got you close to it within, a few miles or less than a few miles, but it wasn't 100%. So there's something you could reasonably argue. Maybe you were in the vicinity or something to that effect. But the confession to the girlfriend about killing the guy, well, that was hard to argue away, because the defense lawyer got up there and said, I mean, his cross-examination essentially consisted of, were you mad about the other girl? Like, no, I was just doing him on the side. Like, I wasn't mad about it. So I knew he was married, so I wasn't mad that he was doing the other girl. I mean, obviously his morals weren't that good. I think she knew that. And I mean, still considering that he killed some dude. So so really it's his words. And that's kind of what, I've been talking about this whole hour. It's like your words is what's going to convict you. Like the things you say. It's just like regular life. The things we tell people either helps us or hurts us. Now, in the situation where you're arrested, generally hurts you. I mean, if you lie to your wife and she finds out, that's going to hurt you in your regular life. And I mean, the same goes with the police. So it's best not to lie to them. It's best not to limit your involvement. And I mean, it's best to invoke your right to silence, because you're not going to help yourself. And it's best not to go. And if you go out and you're committing crimes, maybe don't tell everybody. Like, that would be a good idea. Don't tell everybody, because that's another thing. Not only these folks tell the police about it, or they lie to the police, but then they tell their friends about it. It's like they're celebrating their crime. Like, and then the friend's like, okay, well, I'm going to, I think I'm going to go testify against you, because you got to wonder how good of friends they are. And whatever, are they involved? Are they sort of involved? Whatever it is. Or I've had so many times where a defendant confessed to one of their friends, and the friend wasn't charged with anything. They just told their friend, and we go interview them, and they're like, hey man, you're going to tell the truth. And they would, because they're talking to prosecutors and they're scared. I mean, and they're like, yeah, I guess that's what he told me. I mean, I'll testify to it. It's happened so many times. And this is a person that's not even involved in the case, but I find out about him and I go interview him, and they are saying, yep, Johnny shot this dude. He told me the night of. Or in the case of the guy I prosecuted's other mistress, yeah, he told me he killed the guy. I mean, so she wasn't involved in the case. She just told the truth. So that's going to happen too. And people tell people things. And so that's what will generally hurt your case, is talking. Just keep on talking like this is gonna help you, and it's not. Talking is almost worse than the rap song is talking, but it's almost, I mean, it's like the worst. It's like the best evidence against you is your words. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, that's the best evidence against you, is things that you're going to tell other people or tell the police, and none of these things ever help you. But people can't help themselves but do it. And that's why you see all these, you'll see all these big convictions in the paper or now on the internet. And it's all like, oh, so-and-so got convicted forever. Yeah, because he told on himself. I mean, he literally told on himself. It wasn't that, I like to think I'm a pretty good lawyer, but a lot of the cases I won wasn't because I was so great. It was because dude said he did it, or he told someone else he did it, or he lied about it. And then I ripped him to shreds when he took the stand and made him look like the liar that he was. I mean, so it wasn't like it was brilliant lawyering. Now, the cases that are hard when you're on the state side are the ones when the guy didn't talk, when he didn't say anything, and you got to piece it together again by like a cell phone stuff. Maybe hopefully there's DNA, but there never is. And again, like I said a few segments ago, when do you ever find the murder weapon? And you're going to find the murder weapon with the guy's, prints on it? No, I've never seen that. I mean, I'm sure maybe there's other prosecutors seen that. I've probably tried over 100 murder cases. I've never had a gun that had the fingerprints on it ever. Not one time. Not one time. If I had the gun, never had fingerprints on it. I saw that about that Tyler Robinson case the other day, the guy that's accused of killing Charlie Kirk. The defense got up there and said, the bullet didn't match the gun. And, that was a big headline. It didn't match the gun. Well, that's a little bit of a fib, I guess you would say. So sometimes it's really hard to get bullets to match any gun because once they hit bone and flesh and all that stuff, they get so damaged. The crime lab, the ballistics expert cannot compare it to anything. It's too damaged to do it because you don't know what the projectile is. I'm not a super gun guy, Second Amendment folks, but I know some things. So the projectile is so damaged you can't compare it to anything. So it's not that it doesn't match that gun; it can't match any gun because it's so messed up. So a lot of that's just hyperbole when you hear stuff like that. But that's how difficult it is to build cases when the defendant doesn't talk, because you got to go through all these things, and that's most of the time you don't have you don't have the DNA, you don't have a cell phone tracking. I mean, now you do more, I'm sure, but now you have there's the video stuff is a lot more prevalent. So I mentioned if people are prosecuting nowadays, I see now as a defense lawyer, a lot of people are on video. But I mean, so those are things you have to piece together to build your case against somebody without their words. And it's difficult. It ain't easy. That's when you're really working for it. Like you're really working for that conviction at that point, because you got to build it up, and it's hard. And I mean, I've tried a lot of cases and I've won a lot of cases like that, building it like that. But it's made my life a lot more difficult on their side. And it's made my life better as a criminal defense attorney when the state has to build a case that way. And I have a client that didn't say anything because I'm like, oh, you didn't say nothing. So the state hates those cases when he doesn't say anything, because I know I hated it, because I mean, I wanted somebody to talk. I wanted him to talk to somebody. Because you think about because that's even better than whether you have an eyewitness. Because a lot of times these witnesses, you'll interview them before the trial, and they get on the stand, they say something completely different than what you talked to them about. And then now someone like me as a defense lawyer, I love it, because I'm like, well, I mean, you said this in your statement, but that's not what you're saying right now. Oh yeah, well, I mean, I didn't really mean that. I'm like, oh, okay, well, you didn't mean that, so you're lying then, you're lying now. When you're lying? I mean, and their credibility is shot. So what are they going to do? So that is something to think about. Just shut up, don't talk, be quiet. That's your best defense if you are charged with the crime. Police are not your friends. I'm going to be handling the next hour for Matthew Bishop. I'm going to get into the entire arrest stages and all this boring stuff. Nah, it's not going to be that boring. But anyway, y'all stay tuned. And hi, this is Sean Yurtkron, filling in for Matthew Bishop on, I guess, both sides of the bench / the full story. Matthew is on serving his, I believe, his reserve duty is what I was told. So thanks to him for his service. Appreciate all our veterans. I'm a Marine Corps veteran myself. So thanks to Matthew for doing all that. I think I'll be doing this for the next few weeks. Not sure how long that is going to extend, but I'm glad to hang out on this Jury Saturday with you all for another hour discussing all things about the law and misconceptions and whatnot, and those sorts of things. And I'm trying not to bore you as much as possible for this next hour. Anyway, we had a really good caller call in about getting pulled over and the cops searching your car. And that's a really good topic. I talked about it a little bit last segment, and I wanted to look up. I had this issue come up recently. We're in a case that I was able to get dismissed, and when people, I'm trying to back up and explain this in plain English, not lawyer-ish. Like, how do I do that? Okay, so the Fourth Amendment is, protects you from illegal searches and seizures, right? Okay, I assume everybody knows that part. Well, it really when they drafted it, it's supposed to pertain to your home. That was the main purpose of it. As far as my history tells me, that's the main purpose of it. The your car, you have protections there, but it's a different animal than your home. It's not as, I guess the easiest way to plain English is it's the easiest way to say it is it's not as protected as your home, but you do have protections for it. And what the Supreme Court said about it is that cars are heavily regulated and exposed to public view, so you get less privacy protection than you would in a home. And there's a case called Carroll versus United States where that's kind of laid out, and I won't bore you with all that. And it's this thing called the automobile exception. And so if they have some kind of probable cause, again, I referenced the odor of marijuana, that's the big one. Then they can search areas of the car, which is like the passenger compartment, containers, bags, boxes, anywhere that drugs would be hidden. Now, what I think Johnny, the caller, then talked about, how long can they, if they don't find any of that stuff, or they don't have any, let me back up, they don't have any probable cause in the beginning, how long can they detain you until they have probable cause? That's a different issue. And the court, I think he said 40 minutes. Actually, that is too long. I was trying to remember what the time frame is. It's varying depending on the circumstances, so it's kind of hard to nail down. But some cases go down as low as 10 minutes, where they say that that's too long. If they've done everything they do in related to the traffic stop, and I'll simplify that. Let's say you get pulled over for speeding, and they run your tag and get your license, and they fill out the ticket, give you the ticket. Well, they can't keep extending that stop until they figure out how to find some probable cause to start searching. They bring the dog out. That's usually what it is. They bring the canine. That's the case I had. They bring the canine out, and they're like, "Oh, look, let's sniff drugs." Well, they can't do that in that scenario, and that apply under the automobile exception. They'd have to have that probable cause exist prior to that, during the actual initial traffic stop. They can't extend it unreasonably, which is apparently, like I said, goes down to as low as 10 minutes. So Johnny, you're right, 40 minutes is too long. I was kind of thinking that was about the time frame, but it can go as low as 10 minutes. So that's an argument there. And that was a case I had was longer than that, and got dismissed here recently. But so that's the thing. So the simple way to think about it is your car is not going to be as protected as your home when it comes to a search. And if the cops can come up with some kind of reason, and they usually do, to be honest. I'm just gonna, what I've seen, they smelled marijuana. Well, how do you dispute that? I mean, let's think about how do you dispute that? Even if you're not, I don't smoke marijuana. And so if a cop puts that in the report, how do I say I wasn't smoking any marijuana? Well, the cop says you were. That's kind of where you are with that. And that sucks. And it's hard to refute that. It really is. Or the cop says you smell like alcohol. I had a case recently where the driver got pulled over. He's never drank in his entire life, ever drank. What he had done is he takes prescribed medication, and sometimes it makes him drowsy. Well, the cop pulls him over, and he is acting a little drowsy. And so the cop puts in his report, smells like alcohol, glossy eyes, all that stuff, like I was talking about before, like the copy and paste thing. And finally, and then he doesn't doesn't ask him to submit to an intoxilizer, because after he kind of realizes that it's not alcohol, like it's prescription drugs, he's like, oh, well, I'm never going to submit you. I'm not even going to submit you to an intoxilizer. So my argument was like, wait a second. So in your report, you say that you smell alcohol, that he's got bloodshot eyes, that he's glossy, all that slurred speech, all that copy and paste stuff that y'all do. But then you didn't even ask him to take the intoxilizer. Well, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense now, does it? Considering if you thought he was drinking, you wrote in your report he was drinking, or he was smelled like alcohol. Excuse me. Then you would think that you would want them to submit to an intoxilizer, but this officer did not do that because obviously he realized that he was not drinking and it was a prescription drug issue and not a alcohol issue. But that's what police will do. Unfortunately, you will see that, and I'm not trying to hate on all the police. Everybody, I'm a PBA attorney also too, so it's not that, but that's just what happens with sometimes with cops can do that. They'll do stuff like that where they're like, okay, smelled like marijuana. The guy has never smoked marijuana in his life, and then they start searching the car. Well, if you've never smoked marijuana in your life, the good thing is if they start searching your car, you're not going to have any, so you should be fine, right? But it is the guy that does smoke a lot of marijuana, and then they do search his car, and he's got a bunch of drugs, which is generally what happens, I would say, most of the time. But so probable cause to do that automobile exception is not super difficult for them to get past that hurdle. Now, sometimes they don't, and that's where the case I think what Johnny was calling in, and I'm trying to clarify, when they don't even have that little measure to do the exception, then they can't detain you longer than necessary, so they can create it, for lack of a better way of saying it. Like they can create, like bring the dog out and the dog smells it when they didn't smell the marijuana. And I'm like, oh, cops, why don't you just say you smelled it? No, kid, don't lie. But just like everybody else, just say you smelled it. But they can't try to like extend your traffic stop longer to create that probable cause so they can use the automobile exception on your car. So think about that. But also, this is another thing. You don't need to hold court on the side of the road with them if that occurs, because by the way, you're not going to win. You're just going to go to jail. You're not going to win. You're not, just call a lawyer. They can handle it. That's like what I did in the case that I had. Call a lawyer and they will figure that out for you at that point. But you are not going to win your case. It is not the Supreme Court on the side of I-55. Like, it is not, and you're never going to win it there. So don't do it. Don't talk about the Constitution to the cop. Don't do any of that stuff. Just, like I've said, be quiet and call a lawyer and let it get figured out. And if there are actual constitutional violations, if there are issues with all that stuff, then it's going to get figured out. Like the case that I just handled recently. I mean, it's a qualified lawyer is going to look at it and be like, yeah, nah, can't do that. And hopefully the judge will agree. Sometimes they don't, but hopefully they will. And then you can handle it that way, but don't hold court on the side of the road. And again, that's what I'm saying. That's where most people encounter law enforcement is on the side of, dealing with law enforcement is while we're driving, most of us, and a day-to-day thing. I always kind of say the difference between crimes. There are crimes that actual people that commit a lot of crimes get involved in, like, they're selling drugs or they're killing people or it's an armed robbery or whatever. And then there's like the crimes that like all of us are involved in, like people that aren't committing, generally committing crimes, like a DUI. I mean, people go out and drink and drive. It just happens. You're not like the most evil person in the world because you thought you could drive. Now, I mean, if you're throwing up at the bar and you get in the car, that's pretty stupid. But if you had like 3 or 4 beers and you get in the car, I mean, you're not considering yourself a criminal. It's not the best idea and you shouldn't do it. You should call an Uber. But I think people generally get involved in those situations, or they get pulled over because they're, careless driving or whatever. And so those are the times that most folks encounter the police is while they're driving. It's not generally because they're running a cocaine conspiracy out of their home. Though if you are, you can call me. I can help you out with that. But so that's something just to think about. And since most of us are not used to dealing with law enforcement, used to dealing with the criminal justice system in that regard, I know it's very foreign. And sometimes when I talk to people that are just new to it and they get arrested for whatever, I start talking like they know what I'm talking about. I have to slow myself down because I'm like, because I've done it for so long. So it's just kind of like second nature to me. And I'm like, yeah, when you go to your initial appearance, blah, 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 blah. And they don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, they don't know the first thing about it. And I mean, it'd be like trying to talk to me about fixing a engine. I don't know anything about that. And so if a mechanic starts talking about stuff, I'm like, huh? I don't know. It's kind of like the same thing. I get it. So I was going to go through all of that. What happens when you're arrested? And the first thing, you're going to get arrested. And let's say it's for something like a DUI, something more common for people to get arrested for. There is usually a scheduled bond, and I think most times like $1,000, and you can bond out. Now, what you do, and most people do in that situation, is they call a bondsman. They call a bondsman. The bondsman comes out there and they put up, I think it's 10%, like $100. And that's what they can pay the bondsman. And they'll come and they will bond you out of jail. And then you're on on a bond. And if sometimes there's terms and conditions to that bond, depending on what the crime is. Like if it's a domestic violence case that you're charged with, there's generally a no contact order. And that means that you cannot contact the victim in that case under any circumstances. Doesn't mean they can't try to contact you. And that happens at almost every single one. They'll try to contact the person they charged with domestic violence. And just because they say, the victim says it's okay for you to talk to them, does not mean it's okay. Only person gets to say that is the judge. The judge is the only person. I don't care if she's like, man, you need to come over right now. I don't care about this no contact order. She didn't go to law school. She didn't get elected judge. She doesn't get to do that. The judge gets to do that. He gets to do that. She or she gets to do that. So the victim does not get to do that. So remember that, because that's probably a condition of your bond. And if you violate that, guess what? You're going to go back to jail until your trial. And that sucks. That sucks a whole lot. So try to stay in the parameters of your bond. And so that's what happens. You get bond out and you'll have initial appearance, usually in 48 hours. And if it's a misdemeanor, you'll get set a trial date in municipal or justice court, which by misdemeanor, I mean like DUI, domestic violence, trespassing, all those kinds of crimes that most of us might deal with at one point of our life that aren't, involved in higher felony offenses. And then you'll have a trial date. You either plead guilty or you go to trial. And that's in a court in municipal justice without a jury most of the time. Now, you can get a jury in justice court. I think if the crime carries 6 months or more, you can request a jury trial in justice court, not in municipal court, though. And I know that's very technical, but municipal court is like the city court. Like the city of Brandon has a municipal court. Madison has a municipal court. Jackson has a municipal court. And if you're arrested by the city police, like let's say you get arrested by the Brandon police for a misdemeanor, you're going to go to Brandon Municipal Court. If you get arrested by the sheriff's department, you're generally going to go to justice court, which is the county's misdemeanor court. And in that court, you can, if you're facing 6 months or more, you can get a jury trial. So that's the way that process plays out in the lower court. And then if you're found guilty, you get sentenced, you got to comply by your sentence, whatever it is. If you plead guilty, same thing, and so on and so forth. But the first step is you got arrested, you're in jail, you got to call a bondsman because you got to get yourself out because you don't want to sit in jail. And then you got to get yourself a lawyer and kind of go from there. The lawyer, what they're going to do when you call them in a misdemeanor case, they're going to go enter an appearance in the municipal or justice court, and they are going to get a court date for you, trial date, and they're going to request discovery. And that discovery is going to have, all the police reports, all those reports where you said you only had 2 drinks and where you took the field sobriety test and you fell over yourself. It's going to have all that. It's going to have the videos of that. You'll get to see that if you want to. I have clients that don't want to look at it. And I would be like that too. If I was drunk, I'd be like, yeah, I don't want to see that video. So your lawyer is going to get the video and all the reports, and you're going to be able to evaluate where your case stands from that point, or your lawyer is, and will tell you what they think you should do. And that's when you'll have, like I said, your trial date, or you'll decide to plead guilty, one of those 2 things. Or the case is so bad, the prosecutor sometimes dismisses it. I have that happen too. That's really like a gift. It's a nice day when that happens. So, and that's the misdemeanor kind of process. It's just, that's the way it goes, get arrested, get a bond, get discovery, go to trial, plead guilty. There you go. In a nutshell, I'm just simplifying. The felony one is way more involved in that. And that's where stuff gets hairy, where well, actually where it gets hairy, because I've ran over my break time. I have to go. I'll be back on both sides of the bench. Stay tuned. And we're back on an extended segment of both sides of the bench, where I'm coming from Matthew Bishop, who is, excuse me, is out today, and doing this over an hour radio really makes my voice lock up. Sorry, y'all, but anyway, I'm here talking about the different stages of court proceedings, and I went through what misdemeanor process was, and last a segment here, and I did want to get into people. I've just tried to. I gather a lot what people questions are through social media about the legal process, and I did want to talk about the DUI process, because I keep getting questions about that, and just misconceptions and things that people believe that aren't true about DUIs. And the first thing I'll say, there was a question that I got about. The one that I get a lot is about the roadside PBT, which is the portable breath test machine, the handheld they got in their hand. It's about the size of a cell phone, and whether you can refuse to take that or not. And you can, you're allowed to not take that. It's not a violation of law not to take that portable test on the side of the road. So that is something to think about, because that, of course, that builds more probable cause for your arrest for a DUI. Now, what is generally supposed to happen when you're pulled over on suspicion for a DUI is if they suspect you of that, they're supposed to offer you the field sobriety test, that's one you see on TV where everybody's doing like a one-legged stand, or this stupid HGN test, which is called like an eye flicker test. I think is junk science in my mind, but it's accepted to a certain extent. And then there's a walk and turn, and they'll see those things, but you can refuse to do that as well. But they're supposed to do that before, and then they do the portable breath test. Now, you'll see a lot in Mississippi. A lot of officers will pull you over and shove that PBT in your face, and they're not supposed to do that. That's not the way they're supposed to be trained to do that. It's supposed to come in stages. But I'm sure there's a lot of you that got pulled over, and the first thing they did was here you go, just blow on this. Well, you don't have to do that. Just so you know, you don't have to blow into that little portable thing. Now, what they're going to do, as I said time and again, they're going to write in the report that you were careless driving, and then they pulled you over and you smelled like a bunch of beer or whatever, and your eyes were bloodshot. Even if they were not, like the guy I referenced before. So that's going to be in there. And then they'll probably hey, we've got probable cause to arrest you for DUI, take you to the station where they're going to offer you the intoxilizer machine. Now, that's a different animal. Yes, you blow into that machine as well, but that's the one that's accepted into court. And that's the one that's also covered by the Mississippi implied consent statute. Okay, so what that is, when you get a driver's license, you have given your implied consent to take one of those tests if you're under suspicion of being drunk. So if you refuse to do that, refuse that one, not the one on the side of the road, because people keep asking me about this, not this one on the side of the road, not the one little handheld they shove in your face when they're not supposed to, where they haven't done this orderly. They're supposed to offer you this field sobriety test first. Not that one. The one where you were at the station and you were sitting down and they want you to blow into that machine. Okay. Now, that's the one that's covered by the implied consent statute. Now, you can decide not to blow into that. You can say no. But if you do, make this clear, that is a violation of the law. It is. And for that, you're going to get a 90-day license suspension by the Department of Public Safety, who issues driver's licenses, we all know. Well, not everybody knows that, because I've explained that too. So you're going to get that. What you're going to get is a letter from them. It's not going to be, and the letter will suspend it, I think, 30 days from the day that you receive the letter. So you'll get that, and that's just part of the process. But you'll get that 90-day suspension. Now, that 90 days has got absolutely nothing to do with whether you're convicted of a DUI or not. You could be found not guilty and still get that 90-day suspension. Now, you have an option to refute that 90 days, and you can file an action in county court to do so. It's called a breath test refusal hearing, and you can do that. Those sometimes they're successful. Generally, I'd say they're not, but sometimes they are. Sometimes it's worth looking into for sure. But you can dispute it. But let's say you do that, and that costs money, and you lose that. So you got 90 days. So when you're on that 90 days, there's something that I've noticed a lot of lawyer friends of mine didn't know that I kind of figured out a couple years ago, or a little more than that. You can get an interlock device, which interlock device is that thing you go to a shop, they put in your car, you blow into it, and then you can start your car up. You've probably seen it on TV. So you can go and you can get that put on, and you can get a restricted driver's license, and you can drive for those 90 days if you put that machine on your car. Of course, you got to get an order from the court, and I do that routinely for my clients that refuse to take the intoxilizer. So you can do that. You can drive for those 90 days. So that's something to think about too, if you are in that situation where you won't. Because I mean, God, like we live in Mississippi. I mean, we don't have a great transit system. You're without your license for 90 days. That sucks. That sucks a lot. Of course, that is separate from any penalties that you would get related to a license suspension in the actual DUI. So let's say you got the 90 days. The 90 days passes before or ends before your DUI trial date, which happens a lot. When you sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it coincides, but so if you get convicted of the DUI first offense, let's say first offense, then you're going to get another 120-day suspension. Okay. So stay with me here. You're going to get another 120 days, and you're going to be like people come to me. I have to explain, Sean, I mean, I just did 90 days. Yeah, but that had nothing to do. You weren't convicted of a DUI then. You just refused to take the intoxilizer, which was which you were which you're required to do so. So that's a separate thing. So when you go, so like say you get convicted, you go do the 120 days, you can also get an interlock machine for that 120 days as well. You can do that too. So your car will be on an interlock if you've got both for like 210 days total, and you got to pay for that. It's like a daily fee, or it's charged by the day, something like that. And I have this little cheat sheet I give to my clients about it, where to go get it done, that kind of stuff, associated costs and whatnot. So those are two different things. Now, of course, there are schools of thought whether you should blow or not blow. Like you hear that everywhere, and it's like, should I blow? Should I not blow? A good friend of mine is a DUI lawyer too, and we were talking about this not long ago. It's like, to me, what I see just in real, like I like to talk about real life, real practice, not like theoretical law. I hate theoretical law because it's why I hated law school, because everybody at law school, law professors have never practiced law, so they don't know anything about actually practicing law. One of my good friends is a law professor, and I say this to him all the time. I'm like, you don't know anything about practicing or trying cases. He ain't never done it. He's super smart, so he's a law professor, and most of them are very smart, but they know the practicality. So the practicality is what happens is when you don't blow, you go to court because the officer again has written that you were, you smelled like alcohol and you were slurring and your eyes were bloodshot and all that stuff. And then most people take the field sobriety test and they're like falling over themselves. And then they refuse the intoxilizer machine, thinking, okay, that's my golden ticket to get out of this because I didn't take that, but everything else that the officer wrote. And then they got the video, you and the body cam, you're swaying around. Well, what happens is it goes to justice court and municipal court in any county in the metro area or the entire state, because I do DUIs around the entire state. And you're like, okay, well, I want a trial because, man, I did not take the intoxilizer. Guess what? You get convicted. It just happens. I mean, what I see again 9 times out of 10. So like, it's not like the magic thing. Now, can it help you in certain aspects? Sure. If you do what's called the perfect DUI, where you maybe, well, you're going to have that smell written in the report, regardless if you smell like it or not. But I mean, if you refuse the field sobriety, the PBT, and you don't say that you had 2 drinks, if you just remain silent, maybe then possibly, but it is still tough. It is still tough. But in that aspect, if you have the perfect DUI, which rarely see that, because guess what? Most of the time people are drunk, so they ain't making the best decisions. Then that can help you. But generally what I see, I think when you'll talk to any DUI lawyer that's being honest, that when somebody refuses the breathalyzer, they just racked up another 90 days of no driver's license for themselves and more costs. So that is just something from a practical standpoint that I've seen, and not a theoretical. You'll hear people talk about theory. I like to talk about practical stuff, and I'll follow that up on the next segment of Both Sides of the Bench. Y'all stay tuned. And we're back on both sides of the bench where I am covering for Matthew Bishop with the full story. And I apparently want to be doing that for the next few weeks. So we'll see how long it is. But nothing better than to be here on a Saturday when, I couldn't go outside anyway because look at the weather. It's been like that for a while. Anyway, I'm talking about DUI arrests. And now that it is glooming, what do people want to do? Drink inside. So this is probably pretty good, beneficial for a lot of y'all. I was getting into the differences between what I like to call like the theory of law or theoretical law, which is what you learn in law school, which is completely useless. And I could do a million shows on how stupid I think law school is because it really doesn't teach you how to practice law. And that's unfortunate. And I wish they would change the system. It's not till you get out there and you have, which is, I know a lot of things in life, but particularly law school is very bad about not explaining how to actually practice law. And so you see a lot of stuff putting out about what I call the theory of law. And so you'll see that out there, that kind of advice about, if you don't take the intoxilizer machine, it gives the state less evidence against you. Yes, this is all true. I'm not saying that. Theoretically, yes, totally true. And they'll go into like, they can challenge this and they can challenge that, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, all of that relates to costing you a lot of money because generally that requires an appeal. You can appeal from, let's say you're in Rankin County, you can appeal from justice court to county court and then to circuit court and so on. That, by the way, costs you more money. Okay. So it is in my experience of handling every kind of case possible and prosecuting every kind of case possible, DUIs is one of the hardest things to get out of, y'all. I'm just being honest with you. It's not easy. It's not easy. Now, finally, in this state, or I think for the last 11 years, maybe 2015 is when they passed the non-adjudication statute. We didn't even have that at one point where you just had it. And so now you can, if it's your first offense, you can get it, what's called a non-adjudication. And again, that's me using legalese that sometimes I think people know. That means if you go and you plead guilty, they'll withhold your guilty plea upon successful completion of several things. And in a DUI, that is completion, what's called a MASAP program. Sometimes they throw a victims impact program in there, which are just basically classes that say stop drinking and driving. Like, I'm just simply put it, that's what it is. You'll have to complete the 120-day license suspension. You can get the interlock, like I said, for that. And sometimes I'll do a court watch, like alcohol assessment. You'll pay fines. Usually with court costs and the fine, you're going to walk out of there just with the court and the fines and the court costs around $1,400-$1,400. So think about that. Then you're going to pay for the MASAP class. You're going to pay for the victims impact, and you're going to pay for an interlock if you want that. Then you'll do that. Usually, generally give you a 6-month period. You'll come back to your review hearing in justice or municipal court. Well, they'll enter an order of non-adjudication, which means you were not convicted of the DUI, which is a good thing, for everybody. But you have to successfully complete those conditions timely. Most people do. When I have clients, I keep a list of, their dates for them. And, obviously I want them to, they're supposed to keep track, but I keep track of it too, just in case, and make sure that they're getting their stuff turned in on time and completing all those requirements. So that's good. You get that worked out successfully, and that's very favorable for you. But if most of the time, if if you're like, well, I want to fight it, I want to fight this DUI. It's just a rare occasion that those cases are winnable. Sometimes they are, and I've won them. I'm not saying that, but I'm just being honest. It's harder than you think with that. It is. It's harder. I think it's easier. Let me put it this way: as a defense lawyer, when you're trying a case where your client, like I was saying before, hasn't made a statement, and because I had a case like that, a manslaughter case about 1.5 years ago. The guy was not guilty and didn't make a statement, didn't do that kind of stuff. And the state has to piece it together. Then it is the DUI case because it's no jury there. There's like your bench trial, and it's just more difficult. And especially in this state, we just take those things real seriously. There's a lot of other avenues for you on that front. Another thing that people constantly call me about is marijuana DUIs. And the kind of vitriol that folks have about it, they're angry that knowing that they could get a DUI for smoking pot when they got a medical card. Like it's some big thing that you went and got a medical card. And I always tell them, I'm like, okay, like if you're over 21, it's legal to drink. Everybody agrees with that, right? Well, it's not legal to drink too much and get in your car and drive. Well, I get that you got a medical marijuana card, but doesn't mean you can get Cheech and Chong high and then, or Afro Man high, more generational here, and go drive your car. I mean, you can't do that. Just like you can't take too many prescription drugs, even if you're prescribed them. You're still, it's called under the influence. It's not just alcohol. So if you're just high as a kite, even though you are prescribed and you got anxiety or whatever the heck you got, that you got to smoke pot, got chronic pain, whatever it is, like it doesn't mean you can get high and drive your car. Now, if your chronic pain is so bad and you got to smoke pot all the time to manage it, well, then maybe you just don't need to drive the car. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but that's just what the law is. You want it changed, go to the legislature, see if they'll do it. I mean, Fred Shanks passed a law on squatted trucks. Maybe you can talk him into it. I'm kidding. I'm not, he's not, but so that's what it is. I mean, you just cannot smoke a bong and get into your car and start driving around. That's just, I don't care that it is legal for you to get high. And people just don't seem to understand this. And that, yes, okay, is it the same kind of chemical testing, like a breath test? No, that's not it, right? I get it. But it's what's called a DUI, common law DUI, which we had before there were any of these kinds of machines. So the officer's going to, they're going to copy and paste that report. Instead of, sometimes they'll mess up and say smelled like alcohol when you really smelled like pot and you weren't drinking, but usually they say smelled like marijuana, eyes, this condition, and got out and they were swaying and they were, doing what you do when you're high. And then you'll get convicted of it's called a DUI or DUI, common law DUI. So that happens all the time too. So just because you think it's legal that you got this card and it ain't alcohol, it's marijuana, and you just get totally baked, and drive your car down Highway 80, you can't do that. You just cannot do that. We live in a world now where getting a ride is easier than it's ever been in human history. And I mean that emphatically. Like, it is easier to get a ride. You pick up your phone and like the Uber driver is there and he comes and picks you up and he can take you wherever you want to go. So, I mean, if you got a medical card and you just need to stay high all the time, well, then you need to get you Habib as your driver. I'm making for my own people because I'm Middle Eastern, but I'm just saying, you see a lot of Uber drivers named Habib. So you get him to drive you where you need to go. You cannot, just because you have that card, get around and drive high as heck. You just can't do it. And they will charge you with that offense, just like they will with a DUI. If you've been drinking alcohol, you can't drink a ton of alcohol and just get in your car and drive around. Can't do that. But as much as I keep saying that to folks, everybody's going to do it. No one's ever going to stop drinking and driving until they ban cars. It's kind of my thought on this. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter, how easy Uber or Lyft is. It's just folks are going to do it. So if you're going to do it, I'm just explaining how this all works out, and hopefully you'll take note of it. And next time you're out drinking and driving and you don't call an Uber, you'll think about, hey, maybe I should be quiet instead of talking about I only had 2 drinks and expecting them to let me go. And again, when you got the strip club stamp on your wrist and the cop sees that, they're going to think you were partying. Nobody has 2 beers at the strip club, folks. We all know that. The cops know that. I mean, they know that. Then there was this, so one of my good friends at the DA's office back in the day, he was a big drinker. I'm not going to name him, obviously, but he was a notorious drinker. And I will have to send this segment to my group of friends so they'll know what I'm talking about. A notorious drinker, and he would give this advice, and he would say, people that get DUIs on holiday weekends are amateurs. Like if you're drinking on Memorial Day weekend, that's a good one. We would talk about this before Memorial Day weekend all the time. So if you're drinking on Memorial Day weekend and you get in your car, I'm going to say it now, you're a moron. I mean, you're an idiot, because the cops are like, they get extra funding. They're out in force. They announce it. It's not like you don't know. Like, they're like, we're going to be out and then every Memorial Day weekend, they go on the news, announces like the increase in DUI arrests. So like, they know you're going to be at a barbecue. They know you're going to be drinking, and they got more money and they got more cops out there, and all they're doing is looking to arrest you for drinking and driving. And if you're out on Sunday night before Memorial Day and you're, it's 2 a.m, I mean, what do they think you've been doing? So they're going to arrest you, and it's a pile of them. So our good friend used to say, that's if it's a holiday weekend, that's the time to drink inside and don't drive your car, because that's like you're an amateur drinker if you are going to get pulled over on a holiday weekend. It's like that. I mean, there's an increase. Even the criminal defense lawyers, we all joke, would say, okay, well, we're going to get a lot of cases around the holiday weekends, like July 4th, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Everybody's drunk and driving around. It's like folks don't realize that, like, the cops know that too, that it's the holidays, and they're pissed because they're at work. I mean, think about it. Like, you're a cop working on Christmas Eve. Like, that's got to suck. Like, so you're not going to feel any sympathy for you out there drinking, drinking a bunch of eggnog and getting around your car. Like, they're going to take you to jail. And guess what? The judge is not there. That sucks too. So, I mean, I'm not encouraging anybody to drink and drive. I'm just saying, in this era of rideshare apps, you don't have to do it anymore. Not that you had to do it before, but we've all been stupid and we've all done it before. I mean, just for being honest, we all have. So you're, in this era of being able to access a ride pretty easily, and that's the best thing for you to do. The best thing for you to do is not to drink, but okay, I'm not here to convince anybody to stop doing that, even myself. And I hope, for the last 2 hours, I think the theme of this whole thing should have been, or I hope you took from it, that, you generally, you're not trained in this, so you can't help yourself. You're going to hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself. Just, call somebody that knows what they're doing. And whether you call me or whoever, there are a lot of good lawyers in the city. A lot of them are friends of mine. They do a great job. They'll be able to advise you correctly whenever you're in these situations. And I mean, there's a lot of situations that people get into that, like I was saying before, they're not members of the cartel. They're common stuff that happens. I know domestic violence is something that is horrible. Don't get me wrong, but there are people that are charged with it that are not guilty, and I've seen that firsthand many a times. I mean, there's people that are very guilty, and I've prosecuted those guys many a times, and it's been horrible. And some of them, resulted in someone's death, even more terrible. I'm on a Hulu documentary talking about a case like that I prosecuted back in 2010. So I've seen it from both sides. I mean, it's all real. It happens. So some of it's true, a lot of it is true, and some of it's not. Some people good people get caught up in bad situations sometimes. That's true too. Everybody gets arrested is not always bad. That's not, I think I didn't realize that when I was a prosecutor. I just assumed, like, everybody was just, man, look at these guys. Like, I think I thought that. And then years ago, when I started doing criminal defense, I said, man, my perception of this was completely wrong, because I met, people that I've represented over the years. I've had some great folks that are really good guys, and, men and women that are just salt of the earth people that just got stuck in really, really bad situations. And that kind of, people will ask me, like, how do you defend X so-and-so? And my first response to that is, like, if I cared, I should be doing something else, because I don't think about that. My job is not to think about what somebody did. It's to serve, to protect their constitutional rights and do my job effectively. Just like a doctor that has to operate on somebody that's, a killer. I mean, they're a doctor. They practice medicine. That's their job. And you just have to accept that goes with the territory of what career we choose to do with our lives. That being said, that's not been my experience, though. And I was personally shocked by that, because I thought, wow, I'm going to be dealing with some really bad jokers all the time. That has been the furthest thing from what my experience has been doing this. I met some of the really great people's families that, a lot of times I represent people's children, and when I say children, I mean adult children. The parents, of course, have money, and the kids don't yet. So the parents, like every parent, has to pay for their kids. Ask my dad about that, and I've met some people who are just really working hard and trying to do the best for their families. And, people just get caught up in stupid situations. A lot of times deriving from personal relationship drama. That's a lot of it. That's a big thing. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist or anything, but if you have a toxic relationship, it's probably a good thing to get out of that. It's not a good cycle. I've seen a lot of things that people I represent stems from bad relationships. And I don't just mean domestic violence. I mean just bad decision making as a whole. Like, you get mad at your girlfriend and you guys are always fighting, and one night you're just drinking so much and you get in your car and then you run into somebody. Well, because you were so depressed and mad, you started over drinking and got in your car and you made a really bad decision based on a toxic relationship that you're in. Or, like, let's say that, you're in love with this guy and you found out he was cheating on you, and then you start texting him and the girl and like threatening them and doing all that stuff. Well, and then you land up in jail. Well, were you really a bad person or just really emotionally hurt? You were just These are just all from like really toxic kind of situations that regular people get themselves involved in. Again, I go back to my example about not everybody's a member of the cartel that gets in trouble with the law. These are things that happen in our life. Same thing with drug crime sometimes, or a lot of times. Um, I always call the war on drugs a war on our friends and family. And I actually kind of looked at that when I was a prosecutor that way too, because to me, it's like almost every one of us can think of somebody that we know that's been affected by drugs, whether it's an addiction issue, whether they've been, it's made them become like lose everything they had, or that they've died. All of us, I'm willing to bet that almost all of us have a friend or family member that has been affected by narcotics to some extent. And I think the way that we treat it in the society is we put this big focus on law enforcement or punishment, and we don't actually like treat the disease of it enough or focus on that. Hey man, these people aren't that bad. They just got hooked to something that's really bad. So how do we fix that problem? Because if you look at the statistics of this, we've invested all this money in the war on drugs, and it's the most unsuccessful endeavor that this country has ever embarked on. And you can look that up. Because it's just gotten worse. More people use drugs. It's not gotten better. And we started this war on drugs in the early 1970s during the Nixon administration. It's not gotten any better. And I used to say this years ago when I started prosecuting, it's hard to stop people from doing crimes of things that people want. And what I mean by that are drugs, prostitution, and gambling. Those three. Like, people are going to do those things. They're going to get drugs, they're going to get prostitutes, and they're going to gamble. And it's hard to enforce that. And I think you're seeing that with all these prediction markets and legalized sports gambling. Like, it's become more legal because they're like, the mafia made money for years on illegal gambling. The Dixie Mafia on the coast, before the casinos, they had their own casinos. If you ever interested and look into that. So it's very hard and drugs, people are going to get high and get drunk. I mean, prohibition in this country, when we banned alcohol, created the American mafia. It created it. It didn't barely exist before prohibition. But us banning alcohol made it exist because people had to get their alcohol. So I think a lot of that is very similar to drugs. We put the more enforcement we put on it, I feel like the worse we're making the problem, because we don't actually attack the issue. And it's never going to change. I mean, we're all going to be like, I'm 46. By the time I'm 76, I bet you the amount of drug users is going to triple, because we're going to keep on doing the same thing. So people can get on TV, you can see sheriffs and everybody, oh, we just busted all these drug dealers. Okay. I mean, really? It's the same problem we had in 1980. I mean, it's not changing. You're not really putting a stop to any of it. So I always feel like the way to attack a problem is to figure out what the root cause of it is and start from there, not just keep on throwing money at it and more lengthy prison sentences. It seems like a little ridiculous to me when there's not been any progress in that. But that's my soapbox on all of that stuff. Just remember that you'll never be able to stop crimes that people want: prostitution, gambling, and drugs. And so I hope none of y'all get caught up in any of that stuff. If you want, though, if you do get in any trouble this weekend, you can call me. My number is 601-862-1320. The website is onetextlaw.com. That's ONE text law.com. And we just moved to 771 North Congress Street behind the Mississippi Supreme Court. So I'm downtown now, and you can come by if you need any help, criminal, personal injury, whatever it is. I'll be glad to help you out. And I will be back next week. I think I'm going to be doing another 2 hours. Got to come up with some more stuff to talk about here on the show. I'll try to figure out what this week I'll gather from social media, what people want to hear and what questions they have about the law that they thought were true and that ended up not being true and got them in trouble. But so have a good weekend. If you're stuck in an interrogation room, stay silent. I'll see y'all.